Hi, today I'm doing a stringing machine review on the Prince P7000. Alright, let's get started. Okay, first let's talk about assembly. When you get this machine, it comes in 5 parts. We have the bottom plate, the stand, the platform, the tension head, and the mounting table. So putting it together and taking apart, once you get used to it, it takes about 15 minutes. When I do tournaments that I have to drive to, I'll just take it apart, wrap it in towel with some plastic wrap over it. And sometimes though, on the tension head, in fact all the time, I'll use the original box because it has a nice wooden plate that you can bolt it down onto, and it keeps it nice and secure. Now if you're flying and you have to pack it on a plane, I'll definitely make sure that you pack it in the original boxes. You want to make sure it's nicely protected. Okay. This machine is offered in a 4-point mount or a 6-point mount. On the 4-point mount, it's very similar to the Neos 1500 machine, where you have the 2 mounting posts and there's adapters on each side. So it's 4 points that are actually touching the frame. So they're calling it a 4-point, but it's really a 2-point. On the 6-point, you have the typical 12 and 6, you have the side arms. So it keeps your racket nice and secure during the stringing process. I would recommend the 6-point mount. The height adjustment on this machine is a manual crank. So basically you have your crank here, you can move it up or down using the crank. But what's really cool about this crank is that it's actually foldable, so you can bring the handle in that way. Or if you wanted to remove it completely, it just comes right off. I tend to like to leave mine on just to have it there. You can also use it to hang your rag on it if you wanted to. This machine has some cool features. As far as storage, we have a drawer located right underneath the tool tray. Up above, we have the tool tray that's actually angled towards you, so it just keeps everything easy to get to, very ergonomically designed. And what's really cool are these aluminum tapered holes, especially made for your awls. I love these. With this machine, you get a cover for the stringing machine, but not only that, you actually get a Prince logoed toolkit, which is great. It has a really good tools in here. You have a bent nose pliers, a Phillips screwdriver that'll be used for calibrating your tension head. You have a starting clamp, a straightening awl, a straight awl, a string bed cutter. That's always useful. And then you have a cutting pliers. Only thing that's not in here is a parallel jaw pliers used for tightening your knots. You can buy that separately. When mounting a racket, you want to make sure that the mounting towers are at the correct distance. For most mid-plus rackets, I have these all the way in, and that's where I have it most of the time. But as you get into larger head size, you'll have to slide them back and then test it to make sure that the arms are holding the racket properly. You can go as far back as here, where you would do a 135, maybe a weed racket. But you got some 110s that you're gonna have to adjust it somewhere in between. What I wish this machine had was little indicators on this plate here to try and line it up so each one is the same distance from the center. But you can easily estimate that by looking at the space over here in the hole and make sure that they look about the same before you tighten it. And that's to make sure that your racket is properly mounted on the turntable correctly. If you ever have to adjust the calibration of this machine, it's done pretty easily. There's no need to remove any covers. All it is a plug on the right side of the machine. Then you're going to use a screwdriver that came with your toolkit. After you insert it in the hole and find the screw, then you just follow the instructions on the manual and you can adjust your calibration. Pretty simple. Here is the display and its functions. We have the tension here right now set on pounds. You can change it to kilograms, and you can go up or down. You can even go half pound, but I've never had to use that. Then you have the speed of the pull. You have the low, medium, and high. Pre-stretch, you can set it at 5 or 10. I wish this had 15 or 20. I did string at a pro tournament once, and the player did want 15%, so I just had to be creative and manually pre-stretch the string, and then I went ahead and did the 10%. The mute button, if you don't want your machine to beep, basically, This brake function right here is pretty unique. I think I like it because it actually locks the turntable on every pull, and I'll be demonstrating that later. And that's definitely helpful on those 03 port rackets, if you ever string those. And then finally we have the knot button that you can set when you're tying off, and it goes up to 10% when you want to pull that last string. And then I also like the fact that it's very quiet and operates very smoothly. As I mentioned earlier, Prince has a unique function on their braking mechanism on their turntable. For each pull, you can either turn it on or off. I use it on all the time. But basically, whenever you pull tension, it's going to automatically lock the turntable, and as soon as it slides forward, it's going to release that. So it's hardly noticeable. You may have to get used to it, but because it does it so quickly, it really isn't an issue. What's really helpful about that feature though is when you're stringing an 03 port racket, and typically you would have to angle the string and make sure that it's up against the hole on the correct side. So here's one right here. So let's say if I didn't have this braking mechanism, you would typically line it up, get that string coming out of the hole properly, and then you would have to lock your turntable wherever that happens to be. But in this machine, as soon as you get at that angle that you want and you pull tension, it's locked in place. So that's a good feature. The other thing is these clamps are gravity activated, so you can either release the clamp by dropping it and then moving it over, or another way is you can release it by pushing the button on the bottom, and either way works to release the clamp. This last feature is pretty cool. It has nothing to do with how it's going to string a racket, but you'll notice that the Prince logo lights up, and it stays like that when you're stringing a racket. All right, I'm going to show you one more light that's pretty cool. All right, this last feature is pretty cool. It has nothing to do with how the machine will function as you string a racket, but it will make it pretty cool looking. So on each side of the stand, there's LED lights that can be turned on if you want to. I turn it on when I string at pro tournaments. It just looks kind of impressive. So anyway, that's just a nice feature that Prince thought of that makes it kind of stand out. So I hope you enjoyed this review today. If you have any questions, just comment below. All right, thanks for watching.